All right, welcome to the show. This is the Weekly Jargon. I am Jose Rodriguez.
And Rohi Zachariah.
And today we're absent Abel Perez, but we'll see him next week. It's back to school. And I think as parents, we're all getting ready to get our kids back into the school rhythm. And I think that's why Abel's out today. He's out there getting his son in orientation for high school.
Yeah.
You know, my daughter's going to high school now, and that's what she's doing at the same time. Mom's out there making sure that she's getting her classes ready. But with back to school, how are your kids getting prepared for that, Rohi?
So we did the your usual shopping. We went got to get a new backpack. You got to start getting your supplies, and they're still youngins, so they're not ready for orientation quite yet. But it's definitely getting them back into the rhythm of going back to sleep on time, and we don't wake up and play video games, and kind of that readjusting from the summer routines that they've kind of adopted the last couple of months. So,
and I'll tell you that during these summers when they're out of school, you certainly get comfortable with the routine of not having to get up and making sure you take them to school, that they're up, they got their breakfast, they got everything going. And you kind of start building a routine on that too. And come back to school, or the week before back to school, you have to have everything ready again.
Yeah.
You know, like you said, get them ready to get back into bed early. Now that my kids are teenagers, well, they're pretty responsible, but just being off for such a long time, they also get in that habit, that routine of just staying up a little later.
Yeah.
And you start wondering, hey, you guys need to switch this up pretty quick here because you have about a week to go. And now with two kids in high school, it's good for me because I'm not having to drive to two different schools.
Yeah.
It's better one trip. My son's now getting his license or getting his permit ready to go. So hopefully here within a year, I can get him a car and he can start taking his sister. You start seeing that, and man, the years go by pretty quick, Rohi, because it wasn't a moment ago that they were in preschool, and my son now a junior, my daughter a freshman in high school. Time goes by pretty quick, and getting ready for back to school. It's a big thing for them now because now they're older.
Yeah.
Now brands matter. Now certain things in school matter. Social cliques matter. So all those things you have to take into account because that's what kids are going through. Any experiences with that on your end?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the transition. Like I know my daughter yesterday was talking about how her teacher wants two colors of binders for them to get, and it was very specific on the colors, and she was having a meltdown because she wants other colors, and I was trying to explain to her that hey, you're getting older. They're going to start having certain requirements, and you can't just you like this color and that's the binder you want to get. No, these are the rules that are set out, and we had to have that a little growing experience of understanding this is as you start moving ahead in life, things are going to get a little bit more systematic, and you can't have your unicorns or your football teams or whatever anymore. No, you have to be almost more professional, mindset, which is good. I mean, it gives them guidance, but obviously for her, it means a loss of freedom to some degree. So.
And now your daughter's in what grade? What grade is she going?
She's going into fifth.
Fifth grade.
Yeah.
Your son will be a seventh grade.
Yeah.
Now he's been part of the STEM,
Yeah.
right? And this is where both of my kids attended.
Yeah.
Now, have you seen a change in your son with the schooling and the learning that he has at STEM in comparison to the public and or the charter school that they attended before that?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely it's definitely better. I know they like to do things different. It's more of it's a unique way of learning, I guess, compared to your traditional schooling, which I'm fine with. I like when people think outside of the box. I like if they can address certain teaching styles that they feel are going to work better, then I'm all for it. I know that coming from the public side of it, because of they're more guided again by the state, and they have to hit they're trying to achieve certain goals on the state side. Sometimes that focus can get too much on that, and it gets very systematic. And again, if your kid is struggling or achieving, there's not a lot of ground there. It's we're all together, we all do this together kind of mentality. And that's where I don't like it. I mean, if you have an overachiever, then they're bored out of their mind, or if you have somebody that's struggling, then they're just going to be struggling to keep up, you know. Where I think in STEM they're able to address, you know, all those kind of different dynamics.
Smaller class sizes
Yeah.
too, so sometimes
Correct.
it does help, which is great.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, obviously they transition out of that and they can go on and pursue, you know, career technical careers over
Yeah.
at the high school. I think with our high school system,
Yeah.
we have anywhere from, you know, business development to engineering to ag, and every high school has its department that they focus on, which I think is a good option for a lot of these kids, especially coming out of high school and our community. You know, we want to see that there's opportunity not just in one specific academia,
Yeah.
but also in different types of vocation, trades, and/or different types of careers that kids can certainly find interesting and maybe make
Yeah.
make a career out of it. We certainly start seeing more and more people coming back to Madera. You know, some of them may complain about the jobs, obviously, the job availability. It's not like Madera has a huge, you know, tech job here, but obviously when it comes to the engineering, civil engineering, a lot of government jobs, of course, back to school teachers, and then you have your trades and you have all of your manufacturing jobs that are available. But one thing with back to school that I always find interesting is that the economy seems to have a little push, right?
Yeah.
Because now kids, millions of kids in America are starting to go back to school, especially August being one of those very defaulted months where people get back to school. Parents are rushing to buy everything. They're rushing not only for the supplies, clothing, backpacks, I mean, you name it, lunch, whatever the case may be, parents are spending money to
Yeah.
make sure that everything's in order for this first week. And then you start going into a routine. So your take on that, how does that boost the economy, especially locally and maybe in a national level?
Yeah, I mean, you know, we've talked about it, I think, on other videos about how, like, even the gun industry has these cycles of, you know, of seasonals. And, you know, for us, summertime when people are on vacation out of school, we see the dip. And it's not until these kids go back into school for us that we start seeing that uptick in sales again, that transition in spending. And a lot of that has to do with vacation. You know, everybody's spending their money and time on vacation and having fun during the summer. And now that we're going back to this school regiment, like you said, it's going to be focused on that. I know, you know, my friend's a barber. He says that's, you know, the whole summer you get these kids that they just skip a haircut and they'll come in and now this is the cram to get that shagginess and that clean cut back, you know, so that they can be ready for school. So even him, he's, you know, that's where he sees that economic boost now. Because again, kids are going back into school and kind of getting on track for that. So it's there. I don't know how much compared to, let's say, last couple of years, if we're on track for a good spending year. But I mean, I can tell this is definitely one of the years, post COVID where I would say in our business we're seeing a downtrend in our industry compared to the last 4 years of spending. So. It's hard to say if that's going to be across the board, if that's what it's going to look like, but that's what we're seeing. So
yeah, and I think over the last year with inflation creeping up a bit, you have to start looking at where can I spend money?
Mm-hmm.
Where are my priorities to spend money, right? Housing, of course, being one of them. You have utilities, you have vehicles, and then you have obviously your kids. You have food, you have back to school. So the spending could be a little less if these other departments, or you're paying for a lot of these other departments in a higher amount, right? So I mean, the wages really haven't gone up that much. I mean, one can argue that maybe in the fast food industry, but if the person's receiving a 50-cent increase on their pay, and the cost of inflation is continuing to skyrocket, with especially food, fuel, and what have you, then I mean, that doesn't leave you with a lot of money at the end of the month. And when it comes to, what am I buying my kids? Growing up, I remember that every summer, my mom would try to make sure that we were doing some type of work, whether it be outside, in working out in local ag, so that we can try to make some money to be able to, my mom always wanted to make sure that we had at least anywhere between 4 to 5 pairs of new clothing, right? Whether it be pants, pair of shoes, and maybe 4 or 5 new shirts, and make
Yeah.
sure we had 2 or 3 pants. And that was us on the lower social economic level. I could only imagine how it is for those that are lower than that, and or are used to obtaining the higher brand, the tennies, the 3, 4, 5 pairs. That may some of those cutbacks may have to be taken into account when you're looking at the spending for back to school. Don't know your take on that, but I mean, is that something you guys see on your family end, or?
I mean, we do. I mean, I know for us, obviously California and the Valley doesn't have like the cold winter. So I know, right now we won't see it, but as like when it starts getting cooler for jackets, I mean, I know that's always a constant thing of, trying to hammer into the kids about like, how much a jacket costs and leaving your jacket and, and it's kind of things like that because it's not just, an expense. I mean, if you ever go to these schools at the end of the year and you see how much like clothing is left over, shirts and, whatever backpacks and stuff people forget. I mean, I can imagine as a family, it's not just the buying once, like you said, like you're not buying, this one jacket and it's going to be for the whole year. Like you're buying multiples, the kids will lose it, the kids tear it up. And I haven't seen the downtrend in pricing yet. I mean, we're starting to see sales. So, I just don't know. I don't know if families are going to be able to absorb these continued increases, that we have been seeing. Obviously, yes, for us, it's something that we're still mindful of. I mean, it's still, we don't want to have this mentality of like, we just get whatever we want. And we want to be mindful about being good stewards with our money and spending it where it's necessary. But like my son wanted these pair of shoes. He was hammering us. He wants these pair of shoes. I mean, thankfully they're not very expensive, but it's getting the mindset of, okay, now you have them. These are your school shoes. School's not for a couple of weeks. You can't go wear them out and go run in the dirt with them. Like these are your nice shoes, So trying to have some of that mentality too of teaching them like this stuff has to last. And for some people, it's probably gonna have to last a little longer because things are getting tight,
No, and that's a good point there, Rohi, because it wasn't till about a year ago that I really I got a sense of where the shoe industry is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where we're at with shoes and how much shoes are really, because I haven't really had to go out and buy any really expensive shoes. I know that my wife takes care of a lot of my kids' shoes, and frankly, I don't think we raised them to really look at brands as a way. But as they're getting older, they're starting to see what the kids are wearing, right? And it's always fashion. It's a trend. Hey, these are very popular. You look at the, for example, the shoes that are very popular now without any no socks. What are they called? The
Crocs.
Crocs. There you go. Crocs. Yeah. Crocs became very popular even in school with the designer little badges that you can add. And I'll be honest with you, when they first came out, I just couldn't get around the idea of how bulgy they were, especially the ones that looked like a lot of the nurses were using.
Yeah.
And I didn't understand that there was a comfort element to it, right? Until I purchased some sandals and I go, hey, you know what? These are very comfortable. I didn't buy the bulging ones because I had something in me that said, you know what? I can't wear these. I don't know. They just don't look like something that I could wear out in public. But I can see why people move to that trend because they're very comfortable shoes. But more and more kids, and even at the lower ages, that became such a big boost in Crocs' economy, right? It started really manufacturing the shoes because the demand was there. So up until last year, I played in a golf tournament, and I happened to get a gift certificate to get some Nikes, right? And matter of fact, one of the kids that came to your store that owns the Come Up Kicks is the name, and that's a really nice store, by the way. If you guys are interested in buying some really quality, good Nike shoes and or different types of shoes, that shoe store has it all. I think that they keep up with all the trends. Two brothers, very young brothers, but business entrepreneurs that are looking to establish themselves here in Madera. Visit them. They're on the corner of 17 and 26. Come Up Kicks. So I got the gift certificate. I go in there, and I said, hey, I got a gift certificate for some shoes. And it just so happened that I wanted to give my daughter something, right? So I said, hey, you look like we can get you some shoes. Why don't you come with me? Mm-hmm. So then as I go there, I present the gift certificate, and he says, okay, you can get anything on this rack. Okay, cool. I'm thinking, hey, this is probably a $100 shoe, right? So what's popular at the time that I'm seeing these Panda Dunks, right? And they're Nike Panda Dunks, and all they are is a two-color tone, right? Black or white.
Okay.
But they have a certain style, right? And I do notice that more and more of these kids are wearing them. So then I ask them, hey, what's the price there? And I mean, again, disclosing the price to me, I mean, I don't think it's a big issue because people know that this is the price for shoes of $200. And I go, what? I mean, wait a minute. I don't think I've ever owned a pair of shoes that's worth that much. And I mean, me disclosing that is just letting you know that for me, as long as I have good shoes that are comfortable, sometimes I'm willing to pay a bit more because of not only the comfort, the look, and I'm hoping that they last me a long time.
Yeah.
But I just couldn't see how I could spend $200 on that. Luckily, I had that gift certificate and it qualified. So I asked my daughter, which ones would you like? And sure enough, she said, well, these are popular at school. And okay, well then let's go with that. So Panda Dunks. Now, I did see other shoes that are a lot more expensive. I could only imagine what the Air Jordans are. I haven't kept up with the trend, but I'm sure they're very expensive. And I think growing up with my kids, and we didn't really get them accustomed to trying to get that brand. If anything, it was more the use, the practical use of it, right? You need shoes for running, so we're going to get you some sneakers, and you need some shoes for school, so whether they're dress shoes or not. But brands were not important at that time, and I try to ingrain that in them. Obviously now, as they're getting older and they're teenagers, well, they're seeing what's fashion, what's trendy, and they too would like to get that. But to your point, I think it's important to help them understand why the value of a shoe, why we want you to keep them and use them in the most appropriate way, right? Because I don't think kids today understand that when parents buy shoes, I don't think they understand the value of it until they have to purchase it themselves.
Yeah.
Don't know if you run into something like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that, I mean, again, our kids are a little younger still, but it's something that, we've started, they're starting to do little chores and stuff around the house to earn money. And, we've tried to get them the mindset now when they say, well, I want this shoe or I want this new video game. Okay, well, that's got to come out of your money. And, having that transition of I've done something to earn the money and now buy something, for one, they see the value. So now even my youngest has an association that says, I want this item, it's going to cost this much money. What do I need to do to earn that? You know what I mean? So it's putting value on things that I think, again, because so many kids nowadays are just, kind of like handed it in a sense. Like they don't realize, they're walking around with $1,000 cell phone. Like how much does that, like how many hours do I work to make, to earn enough to buy that cell phone, that kind of conversation really can't be had until they do it themselves. I mean, I can sit there and tell them, yeah, that takes me whatever, 50 hours of work to be able to buy you that, but they can't associate what that really means. But when we say like, okay, you got to go clean the pool or you got to go take out the garbage and here's your couple of bucks. Oh, that's it? Well, yeah. Now you see how much time and effort it's going to take to get that one item. I don't know that they're old enough to now appreciate what they bought more yet, like if they're going to take care of it any better than something that was just handed to them. But I think it has helped with getting a financial understanding about what things cost. Now, it is kind of funny to listen to them, like when we get a car and it's like, oh, that's like $1 million car. Like, no, they can't grasp big numbers like that. They can't understand like how much a house costs or how much a car costs. So you'll get like, oh, it's $2,000. No, okay, well, it must be $1 million. No, and so there's some of that's broken, but at the smaller level, like they know what a cell phone is worth, and that's more important to me because, again, I think later in life they'll maybe appreciate what they're trying to do, that things aren't just, I just want this and I get it, You have to work for it. This is how much work it takes. You can't spend all your money. You can't work, 50 hours, not eat, not sleep, not turn the power on just because you want to buy your phone. Like, it's going to take even more of that time to get that item. So
you bring an interesting point because in many cases, not only do kids not understand the concepts or, like you said, the value of this money. You can throw out numbers out there. but even adults for that
Yeah.
matter, you know, and you see it in many ways because financing becomes an easier outlet to be able to accumulate or consume that product
Yeah.
that's out there, whether it be a cell phone, whether it be a car, a home. And it's easier for them to say, well, I can make these little monthly payments. They just don't know the extent of those payments. Could
Yeah.
be, you know, 5 years. Cell phones, for example, now have 36 months of plans, right?
Yeah.
So you can get the phone at no cost to you up front, but you will be making installments of such and such.
Yeah.
Once you multiply that, I mean, you can see the value of that phone and how much you paid for it. Sometimes I think, you know, as consumers, we get conditioned to believe that. So I lay it back on sometimes it could be our parents not understanding the sense of what the credit or the debt
Yeah.
or what they're really getting into. And if you don't understand, then what can you show your kids? And what the school system may show them is only a tiny bit
Yeah.
of what really is happening out here. And I think more of us parents should take on that initiative of really teaching our kids or bringing it back to a level where school can actually, you know, teach a true class of what it is to budget and finance
Yeah.
and understand credit. Because too many of the times, you know, as a lender, I see this with adults, and it's hard for them to grasp the idea of what they're financing. For them, is the gratitude of saying, "I finally made it. I'm getting a home. I don't care how much it's going to cost me. I just know that I'm getting a home." And as a loan officer, or you know, I can't call myself a financial advisor title because I don't hold those credentials. But I think after seeing what I've seen in this industry, I think I've kind of, you know, taught myself to understand why certain people really go out and become wealthy and why people run in this rat race. So if you're not really understanding the concepts of what finance and budget is, then you're having a hard time to explain that to your kids, and that generation continues to go with that same cycle. So I think it's important to understand, like you said, the value of what we're buying, even back to school stuff. You know, I tell my kids, you know, understand that your mom and I have to work really hard to get you here and make sure that you guys are clothed, you guys are fed, and you guys are transported. Because remember, I went on a public school bus. Now you have the luxury of actually having your parents take you to school every single day. For you, it becomes routine, and you get conditioned to believe that that's probably the way things should be.
Yeah.
But as you get older, and maybe you have a family of your own, you'll understand the costs associated with that, especially if both of you have to work. How do you make it? How do you, you know, and those are very important concepts for kids to understand. But sometimes as parents, we miss that because we're so distracted by so many things. And I'm guilty of that too, because there are certain things that as my kids are getting older, my kid's going to be 17. Where am I at with this trying to establish some type of credit, establish a sense of budgeting and stuff, right? So I do it in small chunks, but I'm still nervous that I haven't taught him enough, because once reality hits you, you know, you can be, it'll revert you back 5-6 years if you don't understand, until you finally get the painful hits of, oh shit, I'm in debt. Oh
Yeah.
shit, my credit has dropped. Well, that could have been prevented if there was steps taken early on to try to help these kids develop that.
Yeah.
And the back to school deal, the reason why we brought this up is because as we're going back to school, we as parents are having to, you know, this is what it costs for us to get there. Make sure that our kids are having a normal, healthy environment, social environment within school. Kids nowadays, you know, I remember going to school and the kids that didn't have the trendy clothes or the shoes were always looked at a little different. And that has a mental effect or a mental health effect later on for those kids. Some are strong enough to understand because their parents have taught them well, but those that don't, I mean, there could be some mental health effects. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I know for us, the battle we've been going with is the cell phone thing. I mean, our kids, all their friends, you know, not all of them, but a majority of the friends have cell phones now, or smartphones even. And my kids are like, "Oh, we want one." And I tell them, "Who are you gonna call? Me and mom. That's it. You don't need a smartphone. You're gonna get a little clam phone, and that's all you're getting if you're gonna get a phone, you know." But to your point, it's it's because they see it as a social thing. Like they want to have the cell phone because their friends have the cell phone and they want to play video game, whatever they want to do together. But they can't understand like it costs money and you're not responsible yet. And who are you really going to call and text? It's just going to be us anyway. So so that social aspect does have a huge impact. I mean, I know it's something that can be worked through. I mean, I know it's something that I think as parents, we're trying to always encourage them to realize, later in life, these things they'll be meaningless. That cool kid in school usually doesn't end up being the cool kid in 10, 15, 20 years from now, So I think that's something that's a little harder to get across to them because they won't see it yet. But I think for me, that was an understanding of, all the people that I looked up to in school that I thought were like, oh, they're so cool and they're the top of the class and everybody knew them. I mean, for the most part, they're kind of in the same place. They're still here in Madera. They're still normal people. They're just, so you can't get caught up in a lot of what was going on in that social aspect. But it's tough. It is as parents because you want to give the best, and you've heard that all the time that you want your kids to be better than you had it. So you have that battle of spending more and more and more to try and, I want them to be the coolest kids. I don't want them to have the best stuff. But is it really helping them?
And that's a good point. I've seen that, and I've seen that sometimes with close friends and family where by doing that, you're actually encouraging this, again, going into this debt, going into this consumer behavior where, you're not teaching the value of, like, how can I live outside of this versus I need to keep up. And to keep up, if mom and dad are no longer providing you to keep up because they assume that you should be responsible to do it, then does that bring down your self-esteem?
Yeah.
Can I go out there and actually do this on my own? And sometimes that's the issue that you see in a lot of cases. And I'm not saying millennials per se or even Gen Z, but are you pushing them out, or are you saying, shit, the way things are going, I'd rather stay with mom and dad because right now there's no way that I can do that. And with the economic news that are taking place, obviously we saw a correction in the market last week that obviously the markets across the world were shaken, not only Japan but here in the U.S. And obviously that had an impact on our interest rates, right? Because now the Feds are at a position where they say, hey, this could be at a point where it's time for us to cut, and they're expecting. I mean, there's 100% confidence that they'll cut in September, and what that does for everything else. I mean, now the price of borrowing that money is cheaper, therefore it's supposed to stimulate, right? And for us in the mortgage industry, I mean, we couldn't wait for a better time, right? Because it really helps. There's people that purchased homes with higher interest rates, and obviously this gives them relief to try to refinance and get themselves in a better rate, obviously saving that extra money. Yeah. That extra money that can go into these school clothes, back to school. Because you brought up another good point. My daughter now, a freshman, obviously she's in sports. My son is as well. And we held until we could no longer, hey, you're going to need a phone because we need you to call us when you're out of practice. And my daughter's to that point now where we felt like, yeah, maybe it's time. From her social group, I think she was one of the last ones there because we felt that, well, like you said, who are you going to call? Chat through these other deals, but there's no reason for you to call anyone at this moment other than us. We're always here. But as parents, I think with the trend of, everyone having a phone, my friends have a phone, texting and all that, I mean, do you want to exclude them from that? Do you want them to feel like, hey, how come you don't have a cell phone now? If you taught them well, they should be able to respond and say, well, I don't need one. Yeah. Right? But unfortunately, just everything's against you pretty much. The media, the social platforms, everything that you see out there pretty much says if you don't have one, you're square. Right? Yeah. So it's hard to convey that to your kids. Hey, it's okay to be square. While they're having to face it up there. You're not the one out there, they are. So I think as parents, you guys we draw the line as far as, okay, we've gone this far, let's go ahead and get you going because I think you need one. But again, that's another expense, right? I have to add that expense into my deal. Now I tell them, no, here's the deal. It may cost me $15 more a month, but I'm hoping that you can contribute to that so that you know the responsibility of carrying your phone. Yeah. and they're okay with it. But again, added expense, back to school. We're hoping that if this Fed rate does come down, it gives a little bit more extra, a bit of money for people to go out and try to get the things that they need. You know, and I don't know if it's happening because of the election. Rohi, you're
I'm
very
sure.
caught up in the politics of it here. We've
Yeah.
had some changes here recently, but
Yeah.
what do you think now? Kamala
No.
Harris has now announced that her VP.
Yeah.
I mean, this is gonna. I don't know if it's stirring a lot of people. I mean, for us in the business industry, does it help? I mean, did you see an increase in firearms because of Biden, or did you see an
Yeah,
increase?
typically you do. I mean, and again, this is a transition year, so typically by the end of the year we should end in a better year than we started. But I think it's more people just with the uncertainty. I mean, the more people you talk to, and I've told people that it's, because for a long time probably for longer than we've been doing this show, we've been talking about how there's got to be this correction, but the people on the streets, the average person you talk to now is feeling it. They're saying, oh yeah, things are getting worse because, this is happening and this is happening. They're losing their house or their car or whatever, their job. And the thing is with all that, the news is always behind the curve. So when the news is now reporting, oh yeah, it's a recession, oh, it's coming, it's already here, and this is going to be one of those things that I think they were trying to delay until after the election because it's definitely going to hurt, Kamala, if she's trying to run and one of the country's in a financial collapse, what have you done,
And it's funny you say that. I know I say that a lot, Rohi, because after you bring up a good point, I like to follow up and piggyback on what you said. But I think for people in real estate, 2021 by far was one of the better years in my tenure as a real estate professional, right? And why? Why did that happen, right? Obviously, the stimulus certainly helped. But this is coming after Trump's election, right? Now you have Biden coming into office. This whole thing with COVID, he took immediate action, right? Obviously stimulated the economy with trillions and trillions of dollars. Someone was going to inherit that money. So,
Yeah.
I mean, as far as someone was going to absorb that money.
Yeah.
I know for the first year or so, people couldn't really do much with that money, so they saved it. And that created supply chain issues because you couldn't get stuff out.
Yeah.
What happened in the housing? You couldn't really get, all the materials to build these homes. So guess what happened? All of a sudden, people are running, and demand for homes are huge, and cost of materials and labor are going up. So therefore, equity is starting to build up.
Yeah.
So for us in the real estate, and then rates are really low. So now you have rates that are historic low. You have people just diving into the market, low inventory. I mean, we had one of the best years ever. So again, that happened in Biden's administration. Now, could that have been a rollover from what was taking place, something that was brewing up during Trump? Now, one can say, well, you link it to Trump, maybe it was Trump's, but the action that was taken to get there was done with the Biden administration.
Yeah.
So, I mean, in business, people look at what's going on with the country, but how does that impact you as a business owner, right?
Yeah.
Did that administration help your gun sales because of the actions that were taken?
I wouldn't say it was necessarily the administration, but again, to put it into perspective, 2 gun stores, one in Coors Gold, which is not far from here, and one in Clovis announced their closure just this month. The one in Coors Gold specifically identified that they had a huge reduction in spending. People like almost half is what they were taking in, and it's not financial viable. So he's already closing up. And I think, again, that echoes what you see in the retail market in general, that it's going to start shrinking. You're going to have this contraction of stores and spending because it's just not there. The money is not there. Now, I don't care who you blame, who was president at the time, but it's what you can see. For instance, I'm trying to look for a new bike, because the bike I have is a yard sale bike from like 5 years ago that's been in the rain, so it's falling apart. Watched a bunch of YouTube videos that were just posted like a couple of months ago, and the prices from that to what I'm looking at them right now have increased 30%. And I'm thinking like, oh, there's a typo. Maybe there's something wrong. No, this is what's happening, is that there's still this increasing of pricing, not 2%, like, 3%, like, no, 30% increase, in a couple of months. I see it in the food. Every time, my wife goes to get food, it's not even that it costs more, it's that the quality has reduced. So you're seeing it's a doubling effect of, no, okay, it's okay if this apple cost, another 50 cents to buy it, if it was good, but it's like rotten and it's like not even good food that they're even putting out. But again, because of pricing, if they were to put a good apple, it'd even have to be even more
expensive,
you know what I mean? So we're getting to this point to where even retail is understanding that you can't afford what you used to buy anymore. It's that bad, but we can't tell you that. So we're just going to put a little lower quality out there to keep it close to the same price, or like you see in the fast food where they do the shrinkflation, right? They don't raise the prices, but all of a sudden your hamburger is a half of what it used to be. I think that's what you're seeing, and people are waking up to that, and they're realizing, oh no, this is a problem.
And with the stimulus, obviously that gave people a sense of relief to have money.
But that was fake.
Yeah, exactly.
What's $1,000?
Yeah, but again, and it wasn't just people. It was a lot of it went to businesses also.
Yeah.
So businesses, benefited to some degree.
Yeah.
Not knowing that the effects would come in later, right? So it's kind of like a twofold deal. You started off with a easy, way of obtaining money.
Yeah.
Money in your hands, in your savings. But I'll tell you what, we're going to give it to you, but you're going to have to spend it, and we're going to force you to spend it because we're going to elevate, or inflation's going to kick in to where, it's going to be more expensive. Yes, you'll have that nice rush and that, stimulating rush going at first, but then the crash is coming. And I think we're here now where people are saying, shit, I'm feeling it.
Oh, yeah.
I'm feeling it because the price of food, of fuel, energy, housing. I mean, at some point, how much more can people tolerate?
Mm-hmm.
Where, you break. And I think if the feds are not seeing this, if the government's not seeing this, then I think they're blinded by what's taking effect out on the streets.
Mm-hmm.
People are starting to feel the effects of, hey, financially, I'm hurting.
Yeah.
And how do I see that? Well, if you have all these people that have stored energy, they have stored equity.
Mm-hmm.
They have a 2%, 3% interest rate, but they need to do repairs on their homes. They need to consolidate debt. They need to pull money out. They've consumed more than what they make, so they're living outside those means. So what's happening now is that I don't want to touch the 3.5% because I'm going to have to go to a 6.5% when I refinance. That's going to double my payment or double the amount, right? And I'm going to have to extend for another 30 years. I already have 5, 10, 15 years into it.
Yeah.
So it's forcing people right now. They're at the edge where they're seeping out the edges by, well, let me go with an equity line. So equity has become a big deal. Equity lines, seconds. But I find that funny. I find it like, man, you have all this stored wealth. Why are you tapping into it? Don't use your home as an ATM card. That's my advice at all times. But again, not knowing their situation and their financial hardships that they find themselves, then you have to kind of guide them to the better product. Do I want to refinance that whole home into a 6.5, or do I want to just do the amount you need, which is $25,000 to $30,000 for your consolidation, for your home repairs, for necessary items that you need? At a 10, 11%. And that may be better because it's a smaller amount versus trying to take the whole amount and put that back. So those are the kind of things that I find myself that I ponder and I say, man, I wonder if people understand that. But it's happening, it's inevitable. And all they're waiting for is just that one small little reduction in rate, and you'll open the floodgates.
Yeah.
And people will say, okay, it's time to refinance. Because a lot of these people don't move because it's too pricey to go out and try to get another home at a higher interest rate. They'd rather sit in their current home until there's an incentive for them to move on.
Yeah.
And I think that little reduction in 0.5% to 1% of a Fed cut rate could potentially open the floodgates. And again, good for us in the business because we'll have the refinance, and good for the economy because now people can start going out there and trying to buy homes. When they buy homes, it's a multiplier effect.
Yeah.
And I think that pretty much wraps up our economic update. Back to school. Rohi, are you planning to go to back to school in Texas?
Yeah, no, yeah. I'm good. I'm done all my school time.
Well, I'll tell you what, one thing I do like and appreciate about us here at the Weekly Jargon is that we try to provide people with good information as far as, finance and budget. And, we may not be the professionals there, but we certainly provide our opinion based on our living experiences, right? Rohi and I both run businesses, and we kind of talk about this a lot. And we feel that maybe if it's something that we can help not only here locally, the public, let us know through comments of how we can provide maybe a show specifically to help with credit, especially if you're looking to purchase a home, if you have a lot of debt, how to consolidate, and how to gain a little bit of wealth. And if we have to bring a financial advisor, we've done that in the past, we love to do that, but we got to hear from you. We'd like for you to comment on that and see if this is something you'd like for our channel, so we can start helping our client, our audience, so to speak, to show you guys topics that may be beneficial to our society. Anything you want to add?
No, good to go.
Okay, with that, thank you again for watching, and we look forward to seeing you guys